The night sky over Seoul changed forever when the first alien ships appeared. Hyunwoo was working late at the Space Observatory when his computer screen started flashing red warnings. He rubbed his tired eyes and looked again. The readings were impossible. 30 massive objects had just appeared near Jupiter, each one larger than any spacecraft humans had ever built. Ji-un, he called to his colleague who was checking star charts at the next desk. "You need to see this." Ji-un rushed over and stared at the data. Her face went pale. "These energy signatures, they're not natural. Someone built these things." Within an hour, observatories around the world were reporting the same thing. The objects were moving toward Earth at incredible speed. Military satellites tried to get closer looks but found their cameras mysteriously failing whenever they pointed at the alien ships. Something was blocking human technology. Commander Kethaval stood on the bridge of his flagship and looked at the small blue planet ahead. He had done this same thing 47 times before on 47 different worlds. Each time, the primitive species living there had surrendered within days of seeing Valdaran power. Some had tried to fight back, but their simple weapons were useless against crystalline shields and psychic abilities. "How long until we reach their homeworld?" he asked his lieutenant. 2 of their days, Commander. Our scouts report they have basic space travel, but nothing that could threaten us. They still use metal ships and chemical rockets. Very primitive, Kethaval nodded. The Valdaran Empire had been conquering worlds like this for 3,000 years. It was always the same. Show up with overwhelming force, destroy a few military targets to prove superiority, then wait for the inevitable surrender. Most species were smart enough to realize they could not win against beings who could read minds and control matter with thought alone. On Earth, emergency meetings were happening in every capital city. At the United Nations building in New York, representatives from every country gathered to discuss humanity's response. Dong Min, a former military strategist now working for the UN Defense Council, stood before the assembly with grim news. "Our best calculations show these ships will reach Earth in 48 hours, he said. "Each vessel is roughly 10 kilometers long. We have never seen technology like this. Our nuclear weapons might not even scratch them." The room erupted in worried voices. Some delegates talked about trying to communicate with the aliens. Others wanted to launch everything they had at the ships while they were still far away. A few suggested hiding underground until the aliens left. Min Ho, Earth's defense minister, stood up. He was an older man who had fought in 3 different wars. His voice was calm but firm. "We will not hide. We will not run away. Humanity has faced terrible enemies before and survived. We will face these aliens the same way our ancestors faced every threat, together and fighting." Not everyone agreed with him. Many people around the world were packing their belongings and heading to remote areas, hoping the aliens would ignore small towns and rural areas. Others were praying in churches, temples, and mosques asking for divine protection. Some were rioting in the streets thinking the end of the world had come. So Young, a news anchor in Seoul, was one of the few trying to keep people calm. She broadcast live from the city center as crowds gathered around outdoor screens. "Yes, we face something we have never seen before," she said to the cameras. "But think about what humans have survived. We have endured ice ages, plagues, wars, and disasters. We are still here. We are still fighting." Her words spread across social media and were translated into dozens of languages. People began sharing stories of human survival and courage, videos of firefighters running into burning buildings, soldiers protecting civilians, and ordinary people helping strangers during disasters filled the internet. The Valdaran ships slowed as they entered Earth's solar system. Commander Kethaval was surprised to see that the humans had not fled their planet. Usually, when faced with superior technology, primitive species either surrendered immediately or scattered to hide on other worlds. These humans seemed to be staying put and preparing to fight. "Send the standard message," he ordered. The transmission reached every radio, television, and computer on Earth at the same time. The voice was cold and mechanical, speaking in perfect English, Chinese, Spanish, and dozens of other languages simultaneously. "People of Earth, you are now subjects of the Valdaran Empire. You have 72 hours to surrender unconditionally. Disable all military forces and gather in designated areas for processing. Resistance will result in the complete destruction of your species. This is your only warning." The message repeated every hour for the next day. Each time it counted down the remaining time. 71 hours, 70 hours, 69 hours. To prove they meant business, the Valdarans selected a military satellite and destroyed it with a beam of pure energy. The satellite simply vanished, turned into atoms in less than a second. Videos of the destruction played on every news channel. The message was clear. Human technology was useless against Valdaran power. But instead of panic, something unexpected happened. The destruction of the satellite made humans angry. Military bases around the world reported record numbers of volunteers trying to enlist. Factories began working around the clock to produce weapons and supplies. Scientists shared research freely, hoping someone might find a way to fight back. Jae Sung, a Marine Corps colonel, was preparing his forces for the impossible. He knew human weapons could not penetrate alien shields or match their advanced technology. But he also knew something the aliens did not understand about humans. They never gave up even when facing certain death. "We cannot fight them in the air or in space," he told his officers. "But once they land, this becomes our world. We know every street, every building, every hiding place. They do not." The countdown continued. 48 hours, 36 hours, 24 hours. Commander Kethaval watched Earth through his ship's viewing screen. Still no signs of surrender. No white flags flying from capital cities. No leaders broadcasting messages of submission. Instead, he saw military activity increasing. Humans were actually preparing to fight. "Perhaps they do not understand how outmatched they are," suggested his lieutenant. "Then we will teach them," Kethaval replied. "Begin the landing operations. Target their major cities first. Once they see their capitals burning, they will surrender like all the others." But as the first Valdaran ships entered Earth's atmosphere, heading toward cities around the globe, they had no idea what they were about to face. Humans were not like any species they had conquered before. They did not calculate odds and surrender when defeat seemed certain. They fought harder when things looked hopeless. The invasion of Earth was about to begin, and neither side knew that this war would change the galaxy forever. The first Valdaran troops landed in Central Park, New York City, expecting to find terrified civilians running away. Instead, they found empty streets and an eerie silence. Colonel Jae Sung had evacuated the area and was watching from hidden positions with his Marines. "Wait for them to spread out," he whispered into his radio. "Let them think they control the area." The Valdaran soldiers were 8 feet tall with crystalline armor that sparkled in the sunlight. They moved in perfect formation, their minds linked together through psychic connections. Each soldier knew what the others were thinking and could coordinate attacks without speaking. They had used the same tactic on dozens of worlds with perfect success, but as they advanced deeper into the park, human snipers opened fire from rooftops and hidden bunkers. The bullets bounced harmlessly off Valdaran shields, but they served their purpose. The aliens turned toward the gunfire exactly as Jae Sung had planned. "Now," he commanded. The real attack came from below. Humans had spent the last 3 days digging tunnels under the park and filling them with explosives. The ground erupted beneath the alien formation, throwing soldiers into the air and breaking their perfect coordination. For the first time in their military history, Valdaran troops were confused and scattered. While the New York battle raged, similar scenes played out in cities across the globe. Humans refused to fight the way other species had fought. They did not line up in neat formations to be destroyed by superior firepower. Instead, they hid in sewers, struck from shadows, and disappeared before the aliens could respond. Yun-ji, a communications engineer working in an underground bunker beneath Seoul, made an important discovery. She was monitoring Valdaran radio frequencies when she noticed something strange. Every time her equipment produced certain static patterns, the alien communications seemed to get weaker. "Taeho, look at this," she called to her colleague, a former hacker who now worked on cybersecurity. "I think our radio waves are interfering with their psychic abilities." Taeho studied the data on her screens. "You might be right. Their coordination breaks down whenever we broadcast on these frequencies. We need to tell everyone about this." Within hours, radio stations around the world were broadcasting specific patterns designed to disrupt Valdaran mental links. The aliens found it harder and harder to coordinate their attacks as human radio interference grew stronger. What had been their greatest advantage, the ability to think and fight as one mind, was becoming a weakness. Commander Kethaval stood in his command center, staring at battle reports that made no sense. His forces should have controlled every major human city within the first day. Instead, they held only small portions of a few urban areas, and even those were under constant attack from invisible enemies. "Sir," "We have lost contact with the 47th Division," reported a junior officer. "What happened to them?" "Unknown, sir. They were clearing a human settlement called Detroit when their signals simply stopped. Reconnaissance shows the entire area is now empty. No bodies, no equipment, no traces of battle. This was impossible. Valdaran technology was designed to prevent such losses. Their soldiers wore armor that could not be penetrated by primitive weapons. Their shields could stop any energy attack. Their psychic abilities let them see enemies before they attacked. How were humans making entire divisions disappear? The answer was creativity. Youngsik, a resistance leader in Seoul, had studied every alien landing and noticed patterns. The Valdarans always followed the same tactics because they had always worked before. They expected enemies to react in predictable ways. But humans were anything but predictable. "They think like a computer," he explained to his team during a meeting in an abandoned subway station. "They calculate the best move and expect us to respond logically. So we do the illogical thing instead." His strategy was working. When Valdaran scouts expected humans to defend buildings, the humans abandoned them after placing booby traps. When aliens tried to secure transportation routes, they found that humans had already destroyed bridges, collapsed tunnels, and contaminated fuel supplies. When Valdaran forces attempted to establish secure bases, they discovered that humans had been living underground for generations and knew how to move through sewers, steam tunnels, and forgotten passages. Hay-1, a chemistry professor at Seoul National University, was working in her laboratory when she realized something important. The aliens were used to fighting enemies who relied on advanced technology. They knew how to counter energy weapons, deflect missiles, and jam electronic systems. But they had no defense against simple chemistry. "If we cannot shoot through their shields," she said to her research assistants, "then we need to make them breathe something they cannot shield against." Working around the clock, she developed chemical compounds using common materials found in any city. Cleaning supplies, fertilizers, and industrial chemicals could be combined to create gases that passed right through Valdaran energy shields. The aliens had never encountered such basic warfare tactics. Within days, human fighters around the world were using Haiwan's formulas to create smokescreens that blinded alien sensors and chemical irritants that forced Valdaran soldiers to retreat from captured areas. It was not elegant or high-tech, but it worked. The war that was supposed to last 3 days had now stretched into 3 weeks. Valdaran casualties were mounting, and worse, their morale was breaking. These soldiers had conquered dozens of worlds without losing a single major battle. Now they were fighting an enemy that seemed to come from nowhere and disappear before they could strike back. In Su, a war correspondent who had covered conflicts around the world, was documenting the fighting from inside the resistance movement. His reports were being broadcast to other worlds through captured Valdaran equipment, and the messages were having an unexpected effect. "The humans are showing us something we forgot," he reported during one broadcast that reached 3 different star systems. "They are showing us that empires can be fought. They are proving that even the strongest enemy can bleed." On worlds where Valdaran rule had seemed permanent, people began listening to these reports. Species that had surrendered decades ago started remembering what freedom felt like. Some began asking dangerous questions about why they had to obey alien rulers who had never asked for their consent. Commander Kethaval received increasingly urgent messages from Valdaran High Command. Other conquered worlds were showing signs of unrest. The humans were not just fighting back. They were inspiring rebellion across the entire empire. "Request immediate reinforcements," he sent back. "The humans are unlike any enemy we have faced. They do not follow standard military doctrine. They do not surrender when outnumbered. They fight harder when they are losing." The response from High Command was swift and angry. No Valdaran commander had ever requested reinforcements during a planetary conquest. It was unthinkable that primitive beings could resist the Empire's might for more than a few days. Kethaval was ordered to end the resistance immediately or face charges of incompetence. But as the 4th week of fighting began, it became clear that this would not be a quick victory. Humans had settled in for a long war, and they were teaching the galaxy something that had been forgotten for 3,000 years. Even the mightiest empire could be challenged by people who refused to give up. The real battle for Earth was just beginning. And across the stars, other conquered worlds were starting to pay attention to the small blue planet that dared to fight back. 3 months after the first alien ships appeared, the war had settled into a deadly pattern. The Valdarans controlled about 30% of Earth's major cities, but they held these areas like islands surrounded by hostile territory. Every supply convoy was attacked. Every patrol faced ambushes. Every night brought new sabotage operations that destroyed equipment and demoralized alien troops. Sun Ho, a brilliant engineer who had been working on clean energy projects before the invasion, was now focused on a much different problem. In a hidden laboratory beneath the ruins of Seoul, he and physicist Mi Young were studying pieces of Valdaran technology that human fighters had recovered from destroyed alien vehicles. "Their power systems are incredible," Mi Young said, examining a crystalline component under a microscope. "But look at this energy pattern. It is almost too perfect." Sun Ho nodded as he studied the readouts on his computer screen. Perfection can be a weakness. If we can find the exact frequency that disrupts their crystals. They had been working on this problem for weeks, testing different electromagnetic pulses against alien technology fragments. Most attempts had no effect at all. But then Mi Young tried something different. Instead of trying to overpower the alien systems, she attempted to make them overpower themselves. "Try a resonance pulse at this frequency," she suggested, pointing to a specific wavelength on their instruments. Sun Ho activated the pulse generator. The alien crystal fragment began to glow brighter and brighter until suddenly it cracked and went dark. They had found it, the frequency that could cause Valdaran technology to destroy itself. "We need to test this on something bigger," Sun Ho said. Their chance came sooner than expected. Wu Jin, a special forces operator who had been conducting raids against alien positions, reported that his team had located a Valdaran command ship that had landed in the mountains north of Seoul. The ship was heavily guarded but separated from the main alien force. "If we can get close enough to plant your device," Wu Jin told Sun Ho during a planning meeting, "we might be able to capture the entire ship instead of just destroying it." The mission was incredibly dangerous. Ye Jin, one of the military's best pilots, would fly Wu Jin's team to the target using a captured Valdaran scout craft that human technicians had managed to repair. They would have to approach the command ship without being detected, plant Sun Ho's resonance device, and escape before the alien guards realized what was happening. The operation launched on a dark, cloudy night that provided perfect cover. Yejin flew the alien scout ship at treetop level, using valleys and mountains to hide from Valdaran sensors. Her piloting skills were extraordinary. She made the captured ship move like it belonged to the original owners. 2 minutes to target, she announced over the radio. Wu Jin and his team prepared their equipment. Each soldier carried human-made weapons modified with the electromagnetic pulse technology that Yunji and Taiho had developed. They also had Sun Ho's resonance device, which looked like an ordinary briefcase but contained enough power to disable an entire Valdaran ship. The landing was perfect. Yejin set the scout craft down in a small clearing, just 500 meters from the alien command ship. The Valdaran guards were not expecting an attack from one of their own vehicles, so Wu Jin's team was able to approach the target without raising alarms. Placing the device now, Wu Jin whispered into his radio as he attached Sun Ho's creation to the command ship's hull. The resonance pulse activated exactly as planned. The massive alien ship began to shake as its power systems went into overload. Emergency lights flashed inside the vessel while alien crew members ran in panic, trying to understand what was happening to their technology. But instead of exploding, the ship simply went dark. All power systems shut down, leaving the Valdaran crew trapped inside their own vessel. Wu Jin's team stormed aboard and captured everyone inside, including several high-ranking officers who possessed crucial intelligence about the Valdaran Empire. Chang Ho, a network specialist who had been studying alien communication systems, was amazed when he examined the captured data. The Valdaran Empire was even larger than humans had realized, controlling hundreds of worlds across 12 star systems. But the intelligence revealed something more important than the Empire's size. It showed its greatest weakness. Their entire civilization runs on a single psychic network, Chang Ho explained to military leaders during an emergency briefing. Every ship, every base, every government facility is connected to this network. If we can disrupt it, their coordination will collapse across the entire empire. The captured Valdaran officers confirmed this assessment, though not willingly. Su Jin, a linguist who had spent months learning the alien language, conducted interrogations that revealed the full scope of Valdaran society. They had built their empire on the belief that psychic unity made them invincible. Individual thinking was discouraged. Personal creativity was seen as dangerous. Everything depended on following orders from the central command network. This is why they could never understand human tactics, Sujin reported. We fight as individuals who choose to work together. They fight as a single mind that cannot adapt when part of it is damaged. But the most shocking intelligence came from conversations with younger Valdaran soldiers. Many of them had never seen serious resistance before. They had been told that the Valdaran Empire was beloved by all the species it ruled, that conquered worlds were grateful for alien guidance and protection. They actually believed their own propaganda, Sujin told her colleagues. Some of these soldiers are genuinely confused about why humans are fighting back. They thought we would be happy to join their empire. The intelligence data revealed something else that gave human leaders hope. The Valdaran Empire contained dozens of species that had been conquered over the centuries, and many of them still maintained secret resistance movements. These groups had been waiting for generations for some sign that the empire could be defeated. News of human resistance was already spreading to other worlds through captured Valdaran communication equipment. Insu, the war correspondent, had been broadcasting reports about human tactics and victories. These transmissions were reaching alien worlds, where conquered populations had almost given up hope of freedom. The humans are teaching us something we forgot, reported one underground broadcast from a world called Cathara, which had been under Valdaran rule for 200 years. They are showing us that empires can fall. Commander Kethval was facing his worst nightmare. What should have been a simple conquest had turned into a grinding war that was draining resources and damaging the empire's reputation. Worse, he was receiving reports of unrest on other Valdaran-controlled worlds. Species that had been quiet for decades were suddenly asking questions about why they needed alien rulers. The captured command ship had contained detailed plans for the next phase of the invasion. Kethaval had been preparing to request additional forces from the Valdaran homeworlds, something that had never been necessary in 3,000 years of conquest. The Empire's leadership was growing impatient with his failure to crush human resistance quickly. Send a message to High Command, Kethaval ordered his communications officer. Request immediate reinforcement fleet. The humans are unlike any enemy we have encountered. Standard conquest protocols are insufficient. The response came within hours, and it was not what Kethaval expected. Instead of offering help, the Valdaran High Command accused him of incompetence. How could a single primitive world resist the Empire's might for 3 months? How could backward creatures with simple technology cause so much trouble? But privately, Valdaran leaders were worried. If humans could resist for months, what did that say about the Empire's power? What if other conquered worlds decided to follow the human example? The psychic network that had held their civilization together for millennia was starting to show cracks as doubt spread through the ranks. On Earth, human forces were preparing for their boldest operation yet. The captured intelligence had revealed the location of major Valdaran facilities throughout the solar system. More importantly, it had shown humans how to disrupt the psychic network that controlled the entire alien empire. The war was about to enter a new phase, one where humans would stop simply defending their world and start carrying the fight to their enemies. The species that had conquered dozens of worlds was about to learn what happened when they chose the wrong planet to invade. General Kyung Min stood in the command center beneath the ruins of Seoul, staring at a holographic map of the solar system. Red dots marked Valdaran positions on Mars, the asteroid belt, and 3 of Jupiter's moons. For 4 months, humans had been fighting defensively, trying to keep the aliens from taking complete control of Earth. Now it was time to take the fight to them. "Are the ships ready?" he asked Jun Ho, the aerospace engineer who had spent weeks modifying captured Valdaran vessels for human use. "As ready as we can make them," Jun Ho replied. "We have replaced their psychic control systems with manual interfaces that our pilots can operate. Nayang has programmed new navigation computers using human software. The ships will not be as fast or efficient as when the aliens operated them, but they will get us where we need to go." The plan was ambitious beyond anything humans had ever attempted. Using 12 captured Valdaran ships, human forces would launch simultaneous attacks on alien bases throughout the solar system. The goal was not just to destroy enemy facilities, but to prove that humans could fight in space as effectively as they had fought on Earth. Wu, the Marine colonel who would lead the first human space combat unit, was preparing his troops for operations in zero gravity. Most of his soldiers had never been in space before, but they had trained intensively using captured alien equipment and virtual reality simulators. "Remember, this is not like fighting on Earth," he told his Marines during their final briefing. "There is no up or down in space. There is no air to breathe outside your suits. But the aliens will have the same limitations we do once we board their ships." The first target was a Valdaran supply depot on Mars. Intelligence indicated that this facility was lightly defended because the aliens never expected humans to develop space combat capabilities so quickly. The attack would test whether human tactics could work beyond Earth's atmosphere. Ye Jin, now commanding a squadron of modified alien fighters, led the assault on the Mars facility. Her pilots had learned to fly Valdaran ships through trial and error, often discovering controls and capabilities that the original designers had never intended humans to use. "Formation Alpha, target the shield generators," she ordered as her squadron approached the red planet. "Formation Beta, prepare to strafe the landing bays. We need to prevent reinforcements from launching." The attack caught the Valdaran garrison completely by surprise. They had monitored the approaching ships and assumed they were friendly forces returning from Earth. By the time they realized the vessels were under human control, Wu's Marines were already boarding the facility through damaged airlocks. The Valdarans had never fought in their own bases before. They were used to attacking other species on foreign worlds, not defending their own positions against borders. Human Marines, trained in close-quarters combat and experienced from months of urban warfare, quickly overwhelmed the confused alien defenders. "Facility secured," Wu reported back to Earth. "We have captured their entire supply network database and 17 enemy personnel for interrogation." Similar operations were taking place throughout the solar system. Human forces struck Valdaran mining operations in the asteroid belt, destroyed communication relays near Jupiter, and captured a research station that had been studying Earth's defenses. Each victory proved that humans could adapt their fighting skills to any environment, but the most important battle was happening on a different front entirely. Bo Young, working from a hidden communications center, was coordinating with resistance movements on worlds throughout the Valdaran Empire. The captured alien equipment allowed her to send messages across vast distances without being detected by Imperial authorities. "This is Earth calling. Kethera resistance," she broadcast on encrypted frequencies. "Human forces have successfully engaged Valdaran military units in space. We are proving that the Empire can be defeated." The response came from dozens of worlds simultaneously. Species that had been conquered decades ago were reporting increased resistance activity. Some were sabotaging Valdaran facilities. Others were refusing to cooperate with Imperial administrators. A few were openly declaring their intention to fight for freedom. Sang Min, a former diplomat who now coordinated resistance communications, was amazed by the messages pouring in from across the galaxy. "There are active rebel movements on 47 different worlds," he reported to General Kyung Min. "They are all asking for advice on human fighting tactics." This was exactly what Valdaran leaders had feared most. The human example was spreading like a virus through their empire. Species that had accepted alien rule for generations were suddenly remembering what independence felt like. The psychic network that held the empire together was being strained by doubt and rebellion. Jin Ai, the intelligence analyst studying captured Valdaran databases, made a disturbing discovery. "The Empire is preparing something called Operation Final Solution," she reported during an emergency briefing. "They are planning to bring their entire military fleet to Earth to end human resistance permanently." The intelligence was terrifying. Instead of the few hundred ships that had invaded initially, the Valdarans were preparing to bring over 2,000 vessels carrying their most elite forces. Emperor Zethmalik himself would command the operation, something that had never happened in the Empire's 3,000-year history. "They are scared," General Kyung Min realized. "If they fail to crush us completely, their entire empire will collapse. This is not just about conquering Earth anymore. This is about survival of their civilization." The news spread quickly through human resistance networks. Instead of causing panic, it had the opposite effect. Humans began preparing for what they knew would be the final battle. Every remaining military unit was called to active duty. Every scientist worked on new weapons and defenses. Every civilian contributed to the war effort in whatever way they could. Ho Young, monitoring Valdaran communications, intercepted desperate messages between Imperial commanders. The rebellion spreading through their empire was worse than they had admitted publicly. Entire star systems were refusing to send reinforcements to Earth. Some worlds were declaring independence outright and forming their own defense forces. The empire is falling apart, Ho Young reported. They have lost effective control of at least 6 star systems. Their supply lines are breaking down as conquered species refuse to produce materials for the war effort. But this good news came with a warning. The approaching Valdaran fleet was the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. Every ship that remained loyal to the Empire was heading toward Earth. If humans could defeat this armada, the Valdaran Empire would cease to exist. If they failed, humanity would be completely destroyed as an example to other potential rebels. Commander Kethval received orders to prepare for the Emperor's arrival. Operation Final Solution would bring overwhelming force to bear against the human homeworld. Every major city would be destroyed. Every military installation would be reduced to ash. Every human who had participated in the resistance would be executed publicly to show other species what happened to rebels. This time, there will be no mistakes, the Emperor's message stated. The humans will serve as an example to the galaxy of what happens when primitive species refuse to accept the natural order. But as the massive Valdaran fleet assembled for its journey to Earth, resistance movements throughout the Empire were making their own preparations. The humans had taught them that empires could be fought and defeated. Now they were preparing to put those lessons into practice. The final battle for humanity's freedom was approaching, but it would not be fought by humans alone. Across the galaxy, dozens of species were preparing to strike at Valdaran positions while the Empire's forces were concentrated on Earth. What had started as one world's refusal to surrender had become a galactic war for independence. The Emperor was bringing his entire military might to crush human resistance, not knowing that he was walking into a trap that spanned multiple star systems and involved species he thought had been permanently conquered decades ago. The Valdaran war fleet appeared at the edge of Earth's solar system like a metal storm. Over 2,000 ships of every size and class spread across space in formations that had never been defeated in 3 millennia of conquest. Emperor Zeth Malik commanded from his flagship, a massive vessel that dwarfed anything humans had ever built. "Today we end this embarrassment," he declared to his assembled fleet commanders. "The humans have inspired rebellion across our empire. Their resistance ends now, and their world becomes a monument to the price of defying Valdaran rule. On Earth, every human who could hold a weapon prepared for the final battle." General Kyungmin coordinated defenses from his underground command center while monitoring reports from across the galaxy. The scale of what was approaching was almost impossible to comprehend. "Sir, we are detecting energy signatures from over 2,000 enemy vessels," reported the sensor operator. "This is their entire military fleet." Kyungmin nodded grimly. "Then we had better make sure our plan works perfectly." The plan was the most desperate gambit in human history. Working with Ga Young, a brilliant military strategist, they had developed a way to turn the Valdaran psychic network against itself. If it worked, the entire enemy fleet would be disabled in minutes. If it failed, humanity would be extinct before the day ended. "All units, prepare for Operation Mirror," Kyungmin ordered. Across the solar system, human teams activated devices that Nei Young and her programmers had spent months perfecting. These machines would broadcast a special signal designed to create feedback loops in the Valdaran psychic network. The signal would spread from ship to ship, growing stronger as it traveled, until the entire network collapsed under its own power. But first, the humans had to get the Emperor's fleet to activate their network at maximum power. For that, they needed the Valdarans to believe they were facing the desperate last stand of a dying species. Taimin, now commanding Earth's defense fleet, led the initial engagement. His ships were vastly outnumbered and outgunned, but they fought with typical human ferocity. The goal was not to win, but to make the Emperor commit his entire force to the battle. "All ships attack pattern Delta," Taimin ordered as Valdaran vessels began entering Earth's atmosphere. "Make them think this is our final effort." The space battle that followed was the largest in galactic history. Human ships, Most of them converted civilian vessels with improvised weapons charged directly at the massive Valdaran fleet. The aliens responded exactly as expected, powering up their psychic coordination network to maximum strength to manage the complex battle. "Network at full power across all enemy ships," reported Weijin, monitoring the Valdaran communications from her hidden station. "Broadcasting mirror signal now." The effect was immediate and devastating. The psychic virus that human programmers had created began spreading through the Valdaran network like wildfire. But instead of simply disrupting communications, it turned the aliens' greatest strength into a weapon against themselves. The psychic link that connected every Valdaran ship began feeding back on itself, creating loops of confusion and panic that grew stronger with each passing second. Alien commanders found themselves receiving orders from multiple sources that contradicted each other. Pilots lost control of their ships as conflicting thoughts flooded their minds. Entire formations broke apart as the coordination that held them together collapsed. Emperor Zeth Malik watched in horror as his invincible fleet began destroying itself. Ships collided with each other as pilots lost control. Others fired on their own allies, unable to distinguish friend from enemy through the chaos in the psychic network. Within minutes, the largest military force in galactic history had become a scattered collection of confused and panicked vessels. "Cut all psychic connections," he ordered desperately. "Revert to manual control." But it was too late. The feedback loop had spread through the entire Valdaran communication network, reaching far beyond the fleet around Earth. On the Valdaran homeworld, government officials found themselves unable to coordinate. Military bases throughout the Empire lost contact with their command structures. The psychic network that had held the Empire together for 3,000 years was tearing itself apart. Dae Young, leading diplomatic efforts from Earth, received the message she had been waiting for. Resistance movements on conquered worlds throughout the galaxy were launching coordinated uprisings. With the Valdaran military command structure in chaos, rebel forces were seizing control of entire star systems. "This is Kithara declaring independence from the Valdaran Empire," came one transmission. "We are establishing a free government and requesting alliance with Earth." "This is the Zeltharan Liberation Front," announced another. "Valdaran forces on our world have surrendered. We are free for the first time in 200 years. Similar messages flooded in from dozens of worlds. The galactic rebellion that had started with humanity's refusal to surrender was spreading faster than the Valdaran government could respond. Their empire was collapsing in real time as species that had been conquered generations ago threw off their chains. One Ho, a historian who had become an expert on Valdaran society during the war, helped coordinate trials for captured alien war criminals. The evidence of imperial brutality was overwhelming, providing legal justification for the rebellion and ensuring that conquered worlds would never again submit to Valdaran rule. Emperor Zeth Malik, his flagship disabled and his fleet scattered, faced a choice that no Valdaran ruler had confronted in millennia. He could continue fighting and watch his species be destroyed, or he could surrender unconditionally to the primitive humans who had shattered his empire. "Open communications with the human command," he ordered, his voice heavy with defeat. Gun Wu, representing Earth in the surrender negotiations, was firm in his demands. The Valdaran Empire would be dissolved. All conquered worlds would be granted immediate independence. Reparations would be paid to species that had suffered under imperial rule. Most importantly, galactic laws would be established to prevent any single species from building such an empire again. "These terms are acceptable," Emperor Zeth Malik replied, signing documents that formally ended 3,000 years of Valdaran dominance. The war was over, but its effects would reshape the galaxy forever. The Valdaran Empire became the Valdaran Republic, one of many free worlds in a galaxy where the concept of conquest-based imperialism had been forever changed by humanity's example. Yujin, a young girl who had witnessed the first alien landing as a child, was now grown up and preparing for her new role as Earth's first ambassador to the Galactic Council. The organization that emerged from the war's aftermath would ensure that no species could ever again impose its will on others through force alone. In schools across the former Valdaran territories, children learned about the human example, how one small world's refusal to accept defeat had inspired the greatest liberation movement in galactic history. The species that had seemed destined to rule forever had been brought down by creatures they had dismissed as primitive and weak. The galaxy was free, and it had learned an important lesson about the power of determination and the danger of underestimating those who refused to surrender. Humanity had proven that empires built on conquest and fear could always be defeated by people willing to fight for their freedom. The stars were no longer ruled by a single power, but shared by hundreds of species working together as equals. And it all began with humans who looked at overwhelming odds and decided to fight anyway.